Justin, you have got a new journalism home since last we did this, which is exciting. And you are also playing hurt today with a little case of the flu. In any case, I appreciate you being here today and welcome back to New Mexico in Focus.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So Nash just laid out this proposed 11-figure sale, which obviously sounds massive. But before we dive in, I'd like to get some clarity on the players here. Blackstone is a massive private equity firm, and that's a phrase that tends to make people feel things. So what is private equity in this context, and who is Blackstone?
Blackstone is a little different from, I think, what a lot of people think that private equity is. A lot of people, I'll take the newspaper business, for instance. We've had a lot of private equity firms come in. They'll acquire a stake in a newspaper, often get involved with management, lay off a lot of people in order to generate higher returns from a distressed business. Blackstone is a little different. They're listed private equity, which means they're listed on public stock exchanges. Anybody can go buy shares of Blackstone. And they are an assets under management firm, which they have a lot of these funds, and its infrastructure fund is getting into the utility business. And they say that they want to buy up utilities like TXNM for their infrastructure fund, and they say that they want to be in it for the long term, that this isn't like a typical private equity. We're going to come in here and strip the utility for parts and leave.
Gotcha. I appreciate that explanation. So like you just said, Blackstone wants to scoop up TXNM, which is the parent company of PNM. Who has a stake in whether that sale goes through? How big a deal is this?
I mean, I think that the utility itself, PNM, TXNM, really have the biggest stake here because they want to make it easier on themselves to raise money for generation and transmission projects. And like literally, the PNM CEO will have to hit the road and go ask people for money, raise money for corporate bonds and everything. And I think that for PNM, TXNM, they're saying it's with Blackstone as a partner, it's going to be a lot easier for them to, finance these new generation projects that they're building out from the 2019 Energy Transition Act. They have to green up their grid, and they got to pay for it somehow. So they say that Blackstone is going to be the way that they want to do it.
Gotcha. And just for clarity's sake, too, PNM services, 550,000 customers in New Mexico? Yeah. So those are all stakeholders in this, too, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, yeah. The ratepayers and, the ratepayers obviously have a huge stake in whether the rates are going to go up, how, this big private equity firm is going to steward the electric grid for New Mexico. This is obviously Blackstone's not a local company. They say that they want local management and everything like that. But yeah, I think as a ratepayer, you have a huge stake in this deal.
So you just mentioned that the reason that TXNM might want to make a sale like this is because they may not have the credit rating to fulfill the governor's climate goals. They might not be able to buy all the toys that are needed. Give me the rest of the backdrop here. What's the rest of the case that's coming from that side of the negotiating table in terms of why this would be good for people who live in New Mexico?
Well, they say it's going to be easier for them to raise money for these generation and transmission projects, and the people of New Mexico will have a greener, more efficient electric grid. In this deal, they also baked in, I think, maybe 3 years of rate credits too. As a part of these deals, there will always be like rate credits and a bunch of community benefits and nonprofit activity and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think that the case for the deal would be to allow PNM to build out all, a greener grid and do it in an easier way. Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is buying that side of the negotiating table's kind of pitch for all of this. You caught a community feedback meeting not too long ago. There's been some pretty serious community pushback. What did you hear at that meeting? Why are folks opposed to this?
Well, one of the big reasons that they're opposed is Blackstone has investments in data centers. In one of their investment vehicles, they fund data centers, and a lot of people went up there and said that they don't want Blackstone to come in and build a bunch of data centers to be fed off of the grid that they own. And so a lot of people kind of saw like a conflict of interest between their data center business and the electric utility business. Now, Blackstone, they say that there's no relationship between their data center uh, business and their infrastructure fund, that they're two separate things and everything like that. But I mean, I think that again, as we talked about at the beginning of the segment here, I think that people just don't like the term private equity. And I think a lot of New Mexicans don't like the idea of somebody, managing their electric grid from Park Avenue, New York. A couple of years ago, we saw what happened when Avangrid came in and tried to buy PNM, and that deal was rejected too. And I think that there's almost just this culture in New Mexico where New Mexicans want New Mexicans to run, our infrastructure here, and a lot of people are just concerned about, what are Blackstone's motivations here? Do they are they going to steward the electric grid in a responsible way?
Gotcha. So ultimately, this decision is going to be up to the Public Regulation Commission, which we call the PRC. That is a 3-member body appointed by the governor that does exactly what its name suggests that it does. Let's pull the curtain up on on the PRC just a little bit. What is their reputation in terms of regulatory environment in New Mexico, and the way it compares to the rest of the country?
They've from a Wall Street perspective, and Wall Street, they'll rank this. They'll look at all the regulatory commissions across the nation, and they say, they'll rank them on their friendliness to investors. And New Mexico has always been one of the least friendly jurisdictions for, Wall Street investors, people looking to invest in utilities. And that's just it. And that actually it's part of the reason why the PNM perhaps doesn't have better corporate bond ratings, is because that's one of the liabilities they face. They're not going to always get the rate increases that they ask for, and it's kind of tough getting deals through this commission. So New Mexico definitely has a reputation for not being the friendliest places for Wall Street.
So unfriendly to Wall Street, but what about ratepayers? What is our reputation or the way we compare to the rest of the nation in terms of the environment for ratepayers?
It's hard to measure a little bit. I mean, obviously, electric bills have been going up. I think I don't have like the stats in front of me right now about what our rates are compared to other jurisdictions and everything like that. But I can say that the PRC, they don't always give the rates that PNM and other utilities request. I've seen firsthand these rate cases, and the utilities aren't getting as much return on investment as they want to here. I know that, so I don't think it's the like a terrible place to be as a ratepayer, but at the same time, I mean, New Mexico is also a poor state too, and a lot of people don't even have electricity. So, I guess that's all relative.
Gotcha. Either way, regardless of who's getting the short or long end of the stick here, this is a massive decision for the PRC coming up. What's the process and timeline for when that decision is going to be made? What happens next?
Yeah, there's actually kind of a kink in the process right now, just because of this motion filed by Prosperity Works, which I think we might talk about a stock sale last year. So there's been like a little hiccup in the case, but there's been a pause in the main case as they decide this other issue. But the PRC just told me this morning that they're going to come out with like a new schedule for hearings and everything in the next couple of weeks coming up pretty soon here. Yeah.
Let's dive into that kink just a little bit. A Blackstone affiliate bought a whole mess of TXNM stock last year. Tell me a little bit about that stock purchase.
Yeah, in I think it was May of last year, Blackstone had purchased $400 million worth of shares in TXNM, and that put them at about like 7.5 something percent ownership interest. So they already have a 7% stake in TXNM now. But Prosperity Works, it's an Albuquerque nonprofit, and they filed a motion in this PRC case saying that that transaction was illegal because companies need permission from the Public Regulation Commission to enter into like a merger agreement. And the Attorney General, Raul Torres, had filed a motion saying that this needs some review. This transaction, the stock sale, needs some review to see whether these two companies violated the law. TXNM, Blackstone, they say no. We could buy shares of a company without PRC approval as long as we don't get like a full ownership stake in it. That's 7%. They don't have any voting shares or anything like that. So yeah, they're kind of saying, well, if anybody buys TXNM or utility stock, well, they need approval. But the other people are saying no, that this was actually part and parcel of the merger transaction. And the stock sale came in at $50 a share, and this merger agreement, I think it comes in at like 61.25 a share. So it was definitely that was definitely a deal for Blackstone, just looking at what the stock price is trading at. But the commission is going to review that issue.
So, Justin, if I'm hearing you correctly, the argument from Prosperity Works and from the New Mexico Department of Justice, Raul Torres, the Attorney General, essentially is that this big old purchase of stock of TXNM by Blackstone is essentially a fig leaf and a way for them to kind of start to get their claws into that company anyway. Am I hearing their argument right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that their argument is that the record shows that it was a part of the original merger agreement. So that this wasn't like a separate random transaction, that it was a part of the agreement. And for whatever reason, they didn't seek approval for the stock sale. I mean, I think if nothing else, we could say that TXNM and Blackstone definitely didn't ask the commission, before if this is okay. They just they did it. They went through with it. So we'll have to see what the hearing examiner and the commission says about that sale.
Gotcha. And like you just said, they did get kind of a bro rate when they bought all those shares from TXNM. Aside from kind of digging through filings as they come in and watching the evidentiary hearings and all of that, what else are you looking for in this story going forward? What can we expect under your byline?
I mean, obviously, the first thing that we're looking for is at the Albuquerque Journal and at the newspaper is just when this deal, what's going to happen with this deal, whether it's going to go through, etc. But after that, I would really like to, if the deal goes through, just evaluate how Blackstone is stewarding New Mexico's electric grid, and maybe make some comparisons to, they bought up utility in Indiana, and maybe look up there to see, how Indiana ratepayers have been treated ever since that transaction. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different angles to this. As a newspaper, we want to look out for our readers and make sure that everything is transparent and filed out in the open, and that people are informed about whether their electric bill is going to go up, whether they're going to have a new, wind farm in their backyard, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Justin, this is a huge story and one that we would not have been able to get to on our own. Thank you so much for helping us catch up to it, and we'll look forward to your reporting in the future.
Thanks for having me.